The air in the high-security bunker was too still. Commander Suri Wilcox stood at a long table strewn with holographic charts of Earth's defenses. Beneath the flickering glow of the overhead lights, her eyes swept from one row of red blinking icons to the next. The planet had been battered for what felt like an eternity, and yet the official record marked it as just 26 days since the alien siege began. The storms of enemy warships looming across Earth's orbit had turned sunlight into a dim haze. Orbital defense lasers flickered in and out with desperate salvos, and entire cities lay dark and silent. Humanity had never faced so dire a threat. Suri tapped a control, and the map zoomed in on North America. Plumes of smoke rose from what used to be the major trade hubs along the East Coast. Thousands of battered refugees trudged across highways, seeking shelter from continuous bombardments. The bunkers that remained operational were musty warrens where scientists, military officers, and what was left of government officials raced to find some means of pushing back. She glanced around the table at the faces of her staff. Exhaustion was etched onto every brow. Captain Darius Tan gave her a slight nod, ready for orders. To his left, Lieutenant Rhea Carter tinkered anxiously with an old metallic ring. Seated next to her was Dr. Elaine Parker, surreptitiously scanning the data displays for infiltration attempts. Suri finally cleared her throat. "We can't hold out much longer with conventional tactics," she declared. "We have maybe 7-8 days of shielding left at best. Then, that's it." No one contradicted her. The shield generators, that had been Earth's last desperate hope, were straining under relentless pressure. Overhead orbitals had grown dangerously thin. Half the satellites were gone, torn apart by streams of alien plasmic fire. Still, the UEC, the Unified Earth Council, insisted on throwing every standard defense at the attackers, as if those might magically reverse the tide of war. Suri sighed. "We need to implement the plan," she said. Her companions exchanged guarded looks. None wanted to be the first to voice the obvious risks. Finally, Dr. Parker spoke. "We still haven't tested our new departure from standard protocol. There might be side effects." "Side effects?" Suri cut her off gently. "We're about to be annihilated, Doctor. We've seen the invaders' ships. We know they are technologically superior to us in every conventional arena. We need to do something surprising. Something they're not prepared for." Nods of hesitant agreement spread around the table. For the last 2 weeks, Suri and a top-secret think tank had been developing an unconventional strategy to counter the relentless might of their foes. In truth, it involved weaponizing an element of humanity's own biology that alien war strategists likely never would have predicted. The concept was as risky as it was revolutionary. Suri turned to Dr. Parker. "Have the test subjects been prepped?" "We have 3 companies of recruits. Their training is complete, and we've embedded their suits with the Neuralink technology. If our calculations are correct, they'll give us a chance to neutralize the invaders' biggest advantage in energy projection." Dr. Parker paused, lowering her voice. "But, Commander, once we launch this strategy, there's no going back. We'll be changing them permanently." Captain Tan stepped forward, eyes determined. "I've seen them train. They all volunteered, any lost family or entire communities to the invaders, and want nothing more than a chance to fight back in a way that no one expects." Without another word, Suri pressed the button that would put the entire planet's defense network on high alert. The screens at the command table roared to life with fresh data. Above them, Earth's battered atmosphere flickered with renewed bombardments. It was time to unleash the unexpected. Across the battered remains of Toronto, a unit of specialized infantry huddled in silence. For days they had survived on ration packs, living in the ruins hidden behind rubble as alien forces set up outposts. Their leader, Sergeant Alois Kim, it was a stoic figure with the face any sculptor might carve for a war memorial. He had lost half his hearing when his entire platoon was vaporized by an enemy strike outside Berlin. Now he led a patchwork of survivors and scientifically enhanced personnel. They waited for the signal. In the distance, the night sky flashed with bursts of green. The invaders were patrolling the area with dispatch drones that hovered in eerie silence, scanning for stray humans. Alice hunkered down, pressing a finger to the base of his neck. He felt the subtle hum of the neural interface linked to his spine. With the slightest conscious effort, he could sense a reservoir of raw mental energy unlike anything he'd experienced before. The scientists called it synapse ignition. It was something they had discovered purely by accident, an advanced technique to forcibly synchronize multiple human brains via an artificial conduit, generating resonance waves that could scramble alien energy weapons. He exhaled slowly. The recruits at his side wore the same neural harness. They had all been told that repeated usage might cause lasting damage to their nervous systems. They had also been told they might be Earth's only hope. So they waited, breaths held, as the invasion drones drifted overhead. Then a vibration in Alois's earpiece signaled the arrival of the coded message he'd been waiting for, a universal green light. Earth's last gamble was about to begin. From the vantage of the alien armada in orbit, Earth's surface glowed faintly under the barrage of weapons discharges. Regius, the high commander of the invasion fleet, watched from the wide windows of his flagship with an expression of contempt, tempered by duty. He was a veteran of numerous planetary conquests for his empire, and had never encountered a species that posed any serious problem. Admittedly, these humans were more tenacious than many others the Empire had subjugated, but tenacity alone was not enough to stop the unstoppable tide of technologically superior might. Their rail guns and torpedoes were laughably primitive. Their fancy energy shields had nearly collapsed already. It was only a matter of time. He turned to address Galvan, the subcommander. "Is the main planetary shield still active?" Galvan consulted a holographic readout. "Barely, High Command. The capacity is at 7%. We estimate it will fail completely within the next day." Reese flicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "Then, prepare the second wave. Once the shield drops, we move in to exterminate or enslave the remainder of their population. Have the gene harvesters ready to gather viable specimens. The Council wants as many test subjects as possible." Galvan saluted and disappeared into the corridor. Regius remained, gazing uncaringly at the battered planet below. The humans would soon be groveling at his feet. Their history would become a footnote in the Empire's never-ending march of conquest. 2 hours later, the watchful alien drones floating above Toronto suddenly detected a faint energy emission not far from the ruins of the city's central plaza. A standard protocol demanded immediate investigation. The drones turned and glided silently toward the source, their sensors trained to detect high-energy weaponry or shield surges. When they arrived, they found only a handful of battered soldiers wearing technologically unsophisticated suits, crouched behind the wreckage. The suits did not register as a significant threat in the drone's database. Their scanning beams swept across the humans, quickly concluding that they posed minimal risk. A directive scrolled across the drone's internal communicator. "Eliminate them." The first drone emitted a bright, sizzling beam, but something strange happened. As it fired, the beam flickered and bent. For an instant, the air around the humans crackled with an unseen resonance. Alas, near the front, felt a sudden jolt in his spine as his neural harness activated, linking him to the half-dozen other men and women around him. A pulse, like thunder, broadcast outward in an invisible wave. The drone's plasmic beam tore a twisted path, missing its target entirely before flickering out. The second drone attempted to fire as well, but its shot deviated wildly, melting a chunk of broken concrete a dozen meters away. The drones tried again with no success. Their software recognized an anomaly, but found no immediate solution. Methodically, they adjusted the frequency of their beams. Meanwhile, the humans crouched as one, forming a circle with tense concentration. The neural harnesses glowed faintly. Yet again the beams scattered, rendered harmless by the peculiar warping in local space. Eloy clenched his jaw. He had no illusions about his new power. All he could do was push this collective mental energy outward, disrupt the energy flow of the alien weapons, and hoped the side effects of brain strain didn't kill him first. "Fire!" he yelled. The squad rose. They aimed Earth-made rifles, archaic in design compared to the drone's advanced beams, but the bullets flew accurately, and with each shot, the circle of neural interference kept the drones from retaliating effectively. Sparks showered the plaza, and the drones crashed to the ground, shattered into heaps of metal shards. The humans stood triumphant, hearts pounding at the sheer wonder of what they had done. 2 days later, while alien ships were still firing on Earth's last shield generators, infiltration squads all across the planet activated the same neural harness technology. Time after time, invading drones found themselves unable to land consistent shots on ground troops. Light-based weapons were spontaneously misaligning or missing their intended targets entirely. As though guided by some intangible force, the atmosphere hummed with chaotic fluctuations. The surprise was total. The subterranean bunkers came alive with urgent updates. Paris infiltration team neutralized 3 squads of shock troopers without a single casualty, crackled a voice over the comms. Another feed reported, in Beijing, a small group of neural harnessed recruits decimated an entire forward base, rotating shifts to maintain the interference field. Enemy ships overhead retreated temporarily, presumably for recalibration. At the central bunker, Commander Wilcox and her staff watched in amazement as the network updates poured in. The plan was working beyond their most optimistic projections. Although the neural harness technology was crude, and the effort of generating the interference field risked mental burnout, the effect on alien weapons systems was profound. The entire invasion strategy of the intruders had banked on the unquestioned superiority of their directed energy weaponry. That advantage was slipping away by the hour. Captain Tan's face lit with excitement. "Commander, our field squads report that drones are falling back to orbit for reconfiguration. We've bought a window." Commander Wilcox nodded. "Then let's seize the opportunity. Deploy Phase 2, get every functional satellite we have left to target the alien ships that are withdrawing. We'll test their calibrations in real time with some ballistic welcomes of our own." Tan saluted and dashed off to relay orders. Suri dared to feel a flicker of hope. All these years humanity had struggled to match other species in advanced technology, but no one had foreseen how unexpectedly potent the human mind could be when pushed to extremes. Deep in orbit, Grecius grew increasingly agitated. The reports flooding his flagship were contradiction. The smaller squads stationed on Earth's surface were experiencing catastrophic disruption of their beam weaponry. The surviving troops were being forced to rely on physical arms and short-range stunners, which had never been the Empire's strong suit. Now, the planetary defense had unexpectedly grown teeth. The notion that these primitive bipeds were forcing a retreat, however small, was humiliating. Golvan stood at attention, eyes on the data feed. "It appears their new tactic is some form of interference we haven't seen before. We've identified a wave pattern that disrupts the plasma focusing arrays of our weapons. We're attempting to recalibrate to different wavelengths, but so far, we've had limited success." Rigas hissed in frustration. "So they've found a hole in our technology, a temporary annoyance. Increase the scanning sweeps. I want to isolate the frequency. Once we do, we'll adjust our energy cannons accordingly. Then we'll end this." Goldland nodded. "Yes, High Commander. We'll focus our research on capturing any of these specialized humans alive. Their suits might hold the key to the interference field." Rigas stared down at the swirling planet. "So be it. Their arrogance will be their undoing. Send infiltration of our own into every sector if you have to. We must discover how they create this effect. Once we do, not a single one of them will breathe again." Alois led his squad through deserted Toronto streets. The flicker of distant fires illuminated a city both haunting and serene. Snipers from his unit perched on rooftops, scanning for any sign of an alien incursion. They had all grown more accustomed to the neural harness day by day, but the migraines were excruciating. One soldier had collapsed after using it in 3 consecutive battles. The emphasis on synchronized focus took its toll, leaving even the strongest mind teetering on the edge of consciousness. He huddled around a small, portable comm with Dr. Parker on the other end. "We can't keep pushing at this rate, Doc," Alois admitted. "Half my squad has nosebleeds. We're wiping out drones, but if they come with a bigger force..." "I understand," Dr. Parker replied softly. "We're analyzing the physiologic impact. For now, we need every minute you can buy us. HQ says the aliens are scrambling to recalibrate their weapons. We have to deny them the time to figure this out." He realized she was right. If the aliens overcame their weapon disruption, Earth's defenders would be back to square one. "All right," he sighed. "We'll hold the line. I just hope we survive long enough to see this through." Hours later, in the industrial ravages of what had been Los Angeles, a massive complex was built, in secret, hidden beneath the burned-out husks of skyscrapers. In a wide underground chamber, Commander Wilcox and her senior staff paced around a giant cylindrical device. Thick cables spooled from the device, connecting it to towering power trans. The humming was nearly deafening. Tan gestured at the cylinder. "The neural harness squads have given us a chance, Commander. The invaders' orbital blockade has shifted focus to the interference threat. Meanwhile, we've had time to bring the final piece of the puzzle online." Suri gazed at the device. "So, this is the amplifier we've all risked our lives to build? Are you sure it will work on a planetary scale?" Dr. Parker responded, her tone cautious. "In theory, yes. We've miniaturized and aggregated the harness technology, but instead of linking a few minds in a small group, this amplifier can connect tens of thousands of volunteers, maybe more. The resonance wave it generates should be exponentially stronger, enough to potentially scramble the entire alien weapon array in orbit." Suri nodded, placing a hand reverently on the device's cold metal. "We'd effectively disrupt their entire blockade. Maybe we'd even destroy their ships if they try to fire." "Yes," Parker said, "but the side effects on the participants' brains could be devastating. Once the amplifier is active, thousands of minds will merge at once. It's a risk. Some might not survive it." Silence fell. Everyone present knew that if the aliens overran Earth, no one would survive anyway. But to wield this amplifier was to gamble with the possibility of a fate worse than death. The permanent collapse of countless human minds fused in an uncontrollable wave. Yet it might also be Earth's best chance to break the siege in one decisive stroke. Suri hardened her voice. "Continue the plan. Prep the amplifier. Start collecting volunteers worldwide. We'll funnel them into the network. Let's finally show these aliens that humanity isn't as defenseless as they think." The Imperial infiltration teams did not go unnoticed for long. There were hushed skirmishes in the darkest corners of major cities, where the aliens attempted to abduct harness-wearing soldiers or sabotage the bunkers. Gunfire clashed with stunner bolts. In one instance, an alien platoon nearly secured the amplifier site in Los Angeles. They slipped through collapsed infrastructure, taking out 2 entire guard units with silent precision. Then, as they reached the subterranean chamber, they found it ringed by a line of Earth's best soldiers, each wearing a neural suit, eyes glowing with the determination to protect the last hope. Lasers spat from the aliens. The neural wave twisted them off track, scorching random arcs in the walls. Then a wave of old-fashioned bullets cut through the infiltration team. The infiltration attempt was over in minutes, but it cost valuable defenders. 3 harnessed soldiers collapsed from catastrophic neural feedback. Their hearts kept beating, but they'd lost all consciousness. Commander Wilcox, standing over them afterward, fought back tears. "We have no choice," she whispered to Captain Tan. "We're so close to turning the tide." It happened on the morning of the 31st day since the siege began. The sky was engorged with the static-laced presence of alien gunships orbiting close, determined to solve this interference once and for all. On Earth's surface, the amplifier whirred with unstoppable momentum. Operators in command bunkers across every continent reported that thousands had joined the network, willingly or not. Some were soldiers, others were civilians with only a brief explanation of the risks. Perhaps that was the real strength of humanity, their ability to unite under ultimate threat. At precisely 600 hours UTC, Commander Wilcox gave the final activation code. In a dusty subterranean command room, technicians pulled the lever on the amplifier's main platform. Lights flickered. Dr. Parker felt the hair on her arms rise as an electromagnetic pulse rippled outward. She flipped through readouts, showing the neural link flooding the participants' spines and brains with signals. Globally, the harnesses came alive. An invisible wave rolled through Earth's atmosphere. Men, women, entire crowds in once occupied cities felt a collective lurch of shared adrenaline and fear. Those wearing the harnesses felt their perceptions expand into a swirling tapestry of thousands of minds. The mental resonance soared, forging a new and singular consciousness for a few heartbeats, one guided by the principle of collective survival. The aliens noticed their ship's systems flicker with massive disruptions. Their calibration algorithms scrambled to keep up as wave after wave of interference hammered them. Regis, aboard his flagship, raged into the command console. "Fire everything, obliterate them!" But when his gunners tried, the beams refused to coalesce, swirling uselessly. Missiles launched sporadically, only to spiral off course or detonate prematurely. The entire might of the invasion armada was held at bay by an intangible force that short-circuited their advanced weapons at the fundamental level. Aboard the largest battlecruiser, the reactors began to overheat. Earth's combined mental energy forced the foreign technology into meltdown. Automatic safeties jammed, and the battlecruiser's hull glowed red-hot as it twisted in orbit. Then, in a burst of brilliance, it tore itself apart. Shock waves jolted through neighboring ships. One after another, hulls buckled, reactors misfired, bridging arcs of plasma that devoured entire vessels from within. The blockade that had seemed invincible not long ago disintegrated into a chaotic conflagration. Across the battered surface of Earth, people watched in astonishment as the fading morning sky lit with unnatural flares. Even those who were not part of the harness network gazed upward to witness the unknown phenomenon devouring the alien armada. It was as if the entire population felt a collective surge of defiance. This was no miracle. It was the unstoppable will of countless minds, forging one final stand to protect their home. On the ground, the neuroharness teams, from Alois's squad in Toronto to the infiltration units in Beijing, experienced an almost transcendent moment. For an instant, they were joined with thousands of others. They felt each other's heartbeats echoing in the cosmic hush, understood each other's hopes and fears with crystal clarity, and realized they were forging the raw power that tore the alien ships to pieces. In that moment, they tasted a unity that transcended anything in human history. Then came the recoil. The partial meltdown of so many minds collapsed the wave. One by one, harnesses powered down, participants slumping to the ground in exhaustion. Some shook uncontrollably with seizures, others fell unconscious, their hearts still pounding from the surge. But they had done it. Earth remained. Regis clutched at a handrail as the flagship reeled from catastrophic damage. Frantic alarm sirens echoed. Sheared metal beams and tangles of cables sparked all around. Golvan lay pinned beneath debris, struggling to breathe. Most of the invasion fleet was gone, destroyed by a phenomenon the Empire never thought possible. Regis coughed, a bitter taste filling his mouth. His subtle telepathic sense of each subordinate's presence flickered, telling him that the chain of command had shattered. Wheezing, he looked through a shattered viewport at Earth below. The planetary shield was still flickering, battered but not gone. In a final act of desperation, he stabbed the console with a trembling hand, initiating an emergency retreat protocol. Hyperdrives whirred to life. Surviving ships severed their crumbling blockade positions and struggled to navigate away from Earth's orbit. A few exploded en route, their engines compromised. Others vanished in blinding flashes as they jumped to faster-than-light exit strategies. What remained of the once proud invasion fleet fled into the void. In the labyrinth beneath Los Angeles, Commander Wilcox and her staff helped unconscious volunteers from the amplifier's main chamber. Dr. Parker delivered hurried triage, checking pulses. Some had survived the neural wave with minimal harm. Others were comatose. The scene was simultaneously triumphant and heartbreaking. Somewhere in the gloom, Captain Tan coughed, then slowly sat upright. He stared at the amplifier, cracks and scorch marks along its surface. "Commander, I think we won," he managed in hushed awe. "That wave took out almost all their ships." Yuri tried to catch her breath. A single tear traced down her cheek. "We did it." She slumped against the console, feeling both exhilaration and guilt for those who might not awaken. "We did it." Technicians scrambled to silence the clanging alarms. Over the intercom, a wave of transmissions burst to life with cheers, relieved sobbing, frantic search calls for loved ones, and trembling voices proclaiming that the aliens were leaving. While battered, Earth was still standing, and for the first time in days the sun shone free of the blockade. 3 days after the cataclysmic victory, the smoldering wreckage of alien ships littered sections of Earth's orbit. A salvage operation commenced, led by the scattered remains of Earth's space fleet. Scientists and engineers scanned the wreckage for salvageable technology. The plan was to glean whatever secrets they could to build a new era of defense. On the ground, relief efforts were underway. Millions had been displaced, entire cities torn to rubble. But the spirit of hope was tangible. Volunteers from across the globe worked day and night in rescue teams. Communities shared resources, fostering what some were already calling a new sense of planetary unity. Broadcasts from world leaders expressed solidarity, vowing never to allow humanity to be caught unprepared again. Everyone recognized that the invaders would not simply vanish forever. Rumors spread that the Empire might send a second, even larger wave. But fear had been replaced by a determined resolve. Around the world, people continued to refine the harness technology, searching for ways to harness it more safely, more effectively. They discovered something fundamental. The synergy of human minds could match, or overcome, even the most advanced alien armada. Alois Kim found himself in a temporary hospital set up in the shattered remains of a sports stadium. Doctors and volunteers darted among rows of cots, ministering to the injured. Alois sat on the edge of his cot, rubbing his temples to relieve a lingering headache. Beside him lay 3 fellow soldiers, still unconscious from neural overload. Doctors told Alois that many might wake in time, while others might never stir again. Alois rose carefully, ignoring the dizziness. He strolled through the triage area, offering a weak smile to those who recognized him from the fight. He stopped in front of a large window where, in the sky, bright shards of alien debris glinted alongside the pale moon. A child approached him, tugging gently at his hand. Alois glanced down to see a small girl with tear-streaked cheeks. She didn't speak, only held up a battered toy figurine of a heroic astronaut. He knelt and ruffled her hair, unsure what comfort he could offer. At last he whispered, "It's okay. We protected Earth. You're safe now." She sniffled but offered a ghost of a smile. Ellis took the figurine gently. It reminded him of old stories and the bright-aimed optimism that had once accompanied humankind's adventures into space. Thoughts churned in his head. Perhaps, in time, Earth would reclaim that sense of wonder, unburdened by constant fear. He patted the girl's shoulder. "We'll always fight back. Don't forget that." Commander Wilcox called for a global broadcast from the half-fractional communications tower in Central Europe. It was a patchwork feed, but she hoped it would reach enough frequencies. Standing in front of battered cameras, her expression was both determined and wary. "Citizens of Earth," she began, voice echoing through the static-filled broadcast, "our world has endured the unthinkable. An alien empire attacked us with the conviction that we were easy prey, but they learned a lesson in human resolve. Together, we discovered the power within our minds and hearts, and we have driven them back, at great cost, but with a victory that transcends mere survival." She paused, letting the quiet weight of her words settle. "We must remember those who sacrificed themselves on the front lines, in the bunkers, or through the neural harness that saved our home. We must rebuild, not just buildings and cities, but also the spirit of unity we've found through this trial. Let us be prepared, should they ever return, to defend ourselves, our families, and our planet. We've shown that we will never again be called defenseless. We will forever stand united for Earth." As the broadcast concluded, scattered applause and cheers echoed from the makeshift crowd gathered nearby. Around the planet, battered but unbroken communities were reminded that the future was once again theirs to shape. Evening settled on the world's battered horizons. From vantage points across different continents, one could see new patterns of lights coming back online, new signals of life and restoration. The nightmares of blockade and bombardment still lingered, but the healing process had begun. Makeshift power grids sprang up. Agricultural zones were reseeded as best as circumstances allowed. People unburied ancient archives of knowledge, determined to innovate beyond previous limits. Far from Earth, in the cold dark of interstellar space, the remnants of the defeated armada limped toward their empire's domain, carrying word of this unexpected human weapon. The Empire would likely reevaluate their approach to conquering Earth. Yet it was equally likely they might fear the mental synergy humans had clocked in that day's events. War would loom on the horizon once more. But Earth would be ready. They had discovered their intangible strength. In a small refugee camp on the outskirts of what once was Berlin, a man named Tomas gently strummed a half-charred guitar. Through the night, people gathered, still dirty and exhausted from the fight. Tomas began to sing a soft, resilient melody. It wasn't about victory or revenge. It was about unity and renewal. An age-old story of how humans, despite their flaws, unite when pushed to the brink. As that lullaby drifted beneath the starry sky, some were reminded of how, for one shining moment, thousands of hearts had merged in defiance of extinction. Across the ocean, in the relit corridors of an ad hoc command center, Commander Wilcox stood once more before the battered holotable that had witnessed the darkest hours. The red blinking icons of alien hostiles were mostly gone, and after-action reports scrolled with casualty figures and staggering losses. Suri bowed her head. So many had died. Yet as images from the new Vantage satellite cycled, she could see entire neighborhoods repairing themselves, families reuniting, entire communities showing an unbreakable spirit. Captain Tan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We made it, Commander." "We did," Suri replied softly, eyes still on the map. "They thought Earth was easy prey. They never considered that we, or any species perhaps, could harness our own minds in such a way." He exhaled a long, tired breath. "So, what's next?" Her gaze rose to meet his. "We rebuild, we prepare, and we remember. We're never truly alone, not if we're willing to stand together." Outside, dawn approached, sunlight creeping across a battered horizon. A new day for a new Earth.